We're going to explore the evolution of South Asian cuisine here in Britain. I'm here with my good friend Anwar. Anwar, welcome.
Thank you for having me here, MK.
We've sort of come to a similar conclusion, haven't we, that there is something required within our industry when it comes to retaining and nurturing new chefs and also our heritage.
There's a saying here is if you do not know where you're coming from, how will you appreciate where you're going? So I think it's time that we looked at a new way of trying to reach out to new people who want to become chefs, who want to show their culinary creativity and come into the industry. And how to do that is from everything that we've experienced in the last 30 years for me, and very much 30 years for you too.
Yeah, so here we are both on the same page.
Yes.
We talk about this conversation a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
And it's really sort of the motivation that we have behind all this. You and I and the people that are in the restaurant trade know very well how acutely some of the problems are,
Yes.
Especially when it comes to recruiting and passing the knowledge on. It would be a shame where we have this accumulated knowledge or experience and it's something that isn't passed on.
Yes.
And younger second generation chefs, third generation chefs like ourselves, we owe a lot to our predecessors.
Yes.
But that was for that era.
Yeah.
And we have to adapt, as we know. So we're calling ourselves a six-season chef, and we're hoping to find like-minded chefs.
Yes.
And come together on a forum, on a platform where we can thrash out some of these difficulties.
If you look at how the thought process of a Bengali person working in a restaurant it was seen as something basic to do. Now, if you look at the job itself, it requires a lot of talent. It requires a lot of endurance. It requires a lot of knowledge of history. It is mentally challenging, and it covers a lot of the academia that is around. So it covers science, thermodynamics, mathematics. There's a lot of things that the people who work in the Indian restaurant trade do. Now, we need to recognize them. When we recognize them, we get the youngsters to say, you know what, this is challenging and I want to become a chef. Not all kids want to become doctors or surgeons or orthodontists or some want to become singers and some want to become artists, some want to become athletes, and we should help them and motivate them to achieve wanting them to do something that makes them happy.
Mm-hmm.
So even cooking, there's so much talent in Bengali cooking. As you know, if you look at some of the social medias, these youngsters are creating cakes and baking and making chocolates. Even some of the old indigenous curries that you get in rural Bangladesh is on TikTok, is on Instagram. Now, if we can make a way for them to bring that into the restaurant trade, we will have our food elevated to a broader spectrum.
Yeah.
We have a few problems that we need to eradicate. The idea that working in a restaurant is not something to be proud of because it requires less education. No, this type of labor role and artistry requires for someone to have it in them naturally, and as they work, it develops.
It is still appealing to me to be in the kitchen every day. 6 seasons in the Indian subcontinent, Bangladesh specifically, we say Soy Ritur Desh, 6 seasons, 6 seasons.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say here is, in the UK, we've got 4 seasons.
Yes.
Okay. In the Indian subcontinent, the cuisine has 7 flavor profiles.
Yes.
In the West, they talk about 5 flavor profiles. So what I'm trying to say is, that in itself should tell you that we have advantages we've inherited, and we should be very confident in what we do. So we do bring intrinsically a different dimension to food. So there's still more potential of what we can be doing, and this is what we're trying to say here. We were at a generation where we sort of just baton being passed down from the old guard to the sort of like the emerging, what you call it. And the interesting thing for me is the point in time in history that where we live. We've got a heritage that we can draw on, but we are British born. Most of us are born or even grew up here. So everything to this locality, we should adopt and we should, embrace and not be, because there is this stigma with fusion. Okay, there's a negative connotation that comes with the word fusion, but as we know, fusion is always happening all around us.
It's natural evolutionary process.
It's a natural evolutionary process, and it's happening all around us. And
especially with food, I think food evolution is far faster than technological evolution, which I believe.
And you touched on the sciences and that kind of thing, but for me, and I look at the social side of things, because it's a people business. Okay, food is very personal, and we know very well, like when food brings people together, families together, it's a very unique way. And I think one of the interesting things that how our community, Bangladeshi communities, began to establish themselves in the UK as migrants, and through the, we almost got through the back door. Almost we captured the hearts and minds of British people through food.
Through food, yes.
Okay, and so I find those kind of things very interesting. It's a very interesting period in history that we live in. Everything accessible, ingredients are accessible. Okay, so for a chef, it's a very exciting period to live in, really, at the same time. For me, what I'm trying to say is let go of the shackles of feeling subordinate to superior, sort of the other kind of cuisines that we think are superior, or potentially we have this complex. Just because you're Bangladeshi doesn't mean you can't offer Indian food, like the way we're doing Italian food in the UK. There's no harm in it, so long as you do it.
There's more Indian sushi chefs than Japanese sushi chefs.
There you go. And I go one step further, because I've done some cookery teaching, and there's an argument that say Indian food or Asian food from that region can only be cooked by Asians.
Yes.
Okay, and I dispute that as well, because anything can be taught and learned. For me, again, so we are at a junction where now you're seeing more even Western chefs being intrigued about our food, and there's some chefs doing quite well. They're fusing with the Western techniques and so forth, and that's happening already. So we might see a phase of that as well. We can adopt what's around us. The ingredients are good, why not? And then you embrace that rather than shying away from it, and for the sake of authenticity, and just hang on to like how things always was. Okay, so by default, it doesn't mean an Indian chef can't do haute cuisine or can't be aspirational and try and push things a little bit.
So we're looking at, if we look at our food, it's quite complex and it's quite dynamic, because we cover from western and northwest of India right to the other side. The Bengali cooking process is very much the gateway into Far Eastern cooking. So if you stepped away from Bangladesh and you looked at Malay cooking, or you look at Burmese cooking, or you look at Thai cooking, and then you look at Indonesian cooking, and then you look at Japanese cooking, we have a lot of similarities. Our cooking is very, very interesting, and it can be broadened, because we can find, say, if we took our fish curry, a normal Bengali fish curry, and we looked at all the recipes and ingredients that go into a fish curry, and then you looked at a popular Malay dish, you'll find every ingredient that we use in a fish curry in the Malay fish curry too, which the famous one is known is which is a soup, fish curry soup, which is laksa. And there's different forms of laksa, because depending on what chili levels we use, it can be attained to different forms of laksa too. So I think we chefs need to come together and we need to bring our knowledge and our history together, and we need to compile it into an education that we can pass on.
Bangladesh is establishing Indian food in a foreign land like Britain, and it's become synonymous almost Indian food. And one of the outcomes of that is something like sort of the most familiar thing, chicken tikka masala, for example. Since then, there's now people are talking, hold on, okay, chicken tikka masala seems to be the only known factor about Indian food. There's more to it. We've almost sort of anglicized Indian food, and we're calling it Indian food, and reluctantly do chicken tikka masala in India in hotels. But you know, from my personal experience, when I was looking into chefs that were cooking the stereotypical Indian menu, kormas, your chicken tikka masalas, pasandas, and so forth, you know, it wasn't very inspirational, I'll be honest,
Right, yeah.
because it wouldn't attract me. Because you learnt it in two days. For the 70s, 80s, 90s even, you know, it's suited, but at the same time, it's brought about a negative connotation with being stodgy, gloopy, unhealthy. All these kind of things have crept in as well in the mindset.
For anybody to understand what a dish is, you first you look at the dish itself, and then you go around asking or looking into recipe books, dishes that are similar. So you'd find that the chicken tikka masala originally would come from the old Mughal recipe of the butter chicken, or the makhni, which is butter and makhan are the same things, buttermilk, buttermilk. So if you looked at that recipe and you cooked it to its original state, then you cooked a chicken tikka masala, and you look what happened in that process, because everything is evolution. So we looked at that. Okay, maybe somebody thought it was too spicy. The butter chicken does have a lot of spice, a lot of core raw spices in it. It has a lot of cumin in it. It has a lot of chili in it. It has a lot of fenugreek in it. So somebody said, well, we served it to the customer, and it's very likely they said it was too spicy.
Well, it's adapting. Adapting to your scenario.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite ingenious as well for that generation to realize that, hold on a minute, you know, people are not going to eat the kind of exactly how we eat. So they've sort of adapted recipes to be a bit more sugar laden, a bit more creamy, and a bit more that kind of thing, because, you know, just to make it work, okay? And it's stuck, and we know this is how it's come about. It's worked. So it's been a success, right?
Yes.
So one thing is, let's not latch on to this one success of our predecessors, and I clap them, salute them. But what about the coming generations? There is a whole emerging or even flourishing establishments that have actually sort of try to redefine what we do, and also there are some restaurants still trying to find their feet in terms of. So it's down to the chefs. We are on par with sort of the Western counterparts in terms of the techniques and the ingredients and the knowledge and the whole development of a menu, and it goes to show that it's not as simple as throwing few ingredients together, and there is an element of sophistication that we can use all this that is at our disposal and build on it, and also getting maybe inspiration from our Western counterparts as well.
I think it's to do with, first we need to recognize the education in the Bangladeshi way of cooking. It's time for us to educate ourselves into what we do, than just take it for granted. When we do that, we'll end up starting to respect it and give value to it. When we start giving respect and value, we in turn start to respect and value what we do. Now, when we start doing that, other people start recognizing that this is something to be valued. Now, then you won't have a next generation of people thinking, well, it's just a curry house restaurant chef. No, the amount of history that is involved in a cooking in a curry restaurant. Let's just go back to the new trend of veganism. You see, veganism pretty much started 6,000 years ago in India at the Ayurvedic period. Now, and if you're making a recipe which is vegan, you're talking about making a recipe that is nearly 6,000 years old. Okay, so and let's say if you're making a dansak, for instance. Well, the dansak was brought over by the Zoroastrians from Persia before the Mughals did. So there's a lot of education involved here that needs to be respected, and I suppose to be proud that we are actually still practicing it.
It has that appeal, it's fascinating. For a chef, if you got all these tools to use, you know, that means you can be doing lots of creativity.
The people that we're trying to connect with is other chefs. So you guys need to come forward, the hard workers, with the knowledge, so that we can compile this knowledge, work and collaborate together, so that we can pass this knowledge on to the next generations who will take it further. I think Bengali food should be right at the top because of the mixed heritage and deeply rooted culture that is involved in Bengali cooking.
We can see examples in our homes, right? I mean, what's happening all around us.
Well, it's the most simple example if we went to was in UK in the last 20 years we get masala chips. Chips were created in England. Now we Asians are putting spices and chili powder and masala and ginger and garam masala, chili flakes, coriander,
Spice it up, isn't it?
and some masala chips, and it's absolutely awesome. Even the macaroni cheese. You know, my kids are putting in spices in just to lift it up, make it a bit more spicy. So the natural evolution is there, and these youngsters are using their own creativity plus their flavor memory, and they're introducing it into things that
everyday Western staples. There's nothing wrong with it.
There's nothing wrong with it
in the sense,
it tastes good.
Add a little flavor, add a bit of exoticness, and you've got a new thing happening. And it goes to show that you don't have to think too hard and or have the knowledge, like say your level, to do things all around you. Being in Britain ourselves, because end of the day, if you're born and brought up here, you're here to stay. So embrace it all.
Yes.
Embrace the diversity.
Yes.
Embrace what's all around you.
Yes.
We've come a long way when it comes to Indian food, and you and I, acquired over the years. But what we do is quite different from what's been happening in the industry, right?
Yeah.
So, some might say we're at the forefront of adapting and creating a new cuisine that's sort of forward-thinking and on par with like the Michelin as contemporary sort of chefs, and what we're trying to do. And we've noticed, and what the message we're trying to say here is that there's been a cultural shift from the old guard of what a curry house looks like and what it does, and obviously it's in the conscious of the greater population, but there is this fringe element of aspirational chefs that are coming through now, and we're seeing that more and more, and you and I are sort of on that same sort of journey where we're establishing ourselves with confidence. Like there's a lot more to than just a simple curry in a bowl. To deconstruct and to do it in a Western way, it requires a lot of skill and knowledge and that kind of thing. But that is the enjoyment, and that is the whole satisfaction for me. Also, at the same time,
it's a challenge.
Isn't it?
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge as well. So, Indian, or the stereotypical food that we assume curry is the only food that happens in India.
We have an impact, don't we? Anywhere we go, everybody has an impact. Every culture has an impact with the culture that was there in front of them. Either it merges and evolves, and that is natural process. It's not just that we are changing; they are changing with us. It's merging.
There is this thing where I think people will come to an Indian to spice up their life a little bit, right? So they come to Indian, and I want a little, if you don't do spicy, it's not Indian, is it? So the subtleness and the art of food of sort of getting the balance of flavors correct and the subtleness, it comes later in your career, understanding that actually, you know, it's not all about boom, you know, in flavors just making you go crazy and sort of drink down a lot of glagers. It's actually in the flavors that we can bring out and then the complexity that we can demonstrate on a plate. And there's so much, like if you take the moment to eat slowly, that you appreciate the food itself and the layers of flavors that we can actually muster on a dish. We'll have this persona and the perception that Indian food is supposed to be like this, and it's not, can't be a more contemporary way of doing things, and then the level of sophistication.
I think what we need to do is we need to actually recognize what Bengali food is, and when we do that, we will find West Indian food, North Indian food, South Indian food. It's all there in Bengali cooking. And then we will find the elements of all the broth curries that are from the eastern side of Asia in our foods too. And then we'll actually start to see that our food, our Bengali cooking itself, is far more greater than what we actually know.